Well, hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to today's faculty panel event. Happy to have everybody here today. This event is part of the LSU Online Faculty Committee panel series, which is Pixels and Pedagogy, Exploring Online Teaching and Learning. I want to give a big thank you to the faculty committee, that working group that has put on this event today. I'm Kristen Hernandez. I'm a senior learning experience designer with LSU Online, and I am honored to serve as your moderator today. So today's discussion is about Beyond the Screen, experiential learning in online courses, which focuses on how online learning online education can create meaningful, hands-on learning experiences that really help students connect what they learn to real-world practice. We're going to be hearing from three incredible faculty members and subject matter experts who have created some really great applied learning experiences in their online courses. They're going to share their specific projects or activities, some of the lessons that they've learned throughout, and insights into how these experiences help students really to connect theory to real world practice. So before we jump in, I want to let you know kind of how our session will run. So we're going to start with some brief introductions, and then each of our panelists will have about 10 minutes to showcase their specific experiential learning project or activity. And then afterwards, we'll have a short discussion and advice segment from the panelists. And of course, we'll make sure that we open and have some time for audience Q&A. If you do happen to have any questions during the presentation, you can post them in the Q&A section of this meeting. You should see a Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom, or you might have to click on the More button to see that. But you can ask those questions there, and we'll make sure that, that we do address those. We will do the best that we can to address all the questions during the allotted time. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to begin by inviting each of our panelists that are with us today to briefly introduce themselves. My panelists, please introduce yourself with your name, your institution, and your perspective on the importance of experiential learning in today's world. So we'll get started with Professor Merritt.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Yvette Merritt. I am an instructor in the School of Public Health at LSU Health New Orleans. And my perspective on experiential learning is that it's a unique opportunity to provide our students with authentic, unique experiences that are outside of their normal, like machine learning, AI. It's untouched almost by those things, which is a great chance for us to build public health professionals in ways that matter, in ways that are still important. We're able to highlight those touches that make our profession so much different from the rest of the world and the rest of the content that they're getting. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Schwarz.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule now to be here today. We appreciate it. My name is Andrew Schwarz. I'm a professor of information systems in the E.J. Uso College of Business on main campus. So, I've been at LSU. This is my 22nd year here. I think actually experiential education is fundamental to the challenge of higher education as we know it today. I think we're seeing a transformation in higher education. And one of the big challenges that I've seen in talking to employers is that they're increasingly frustrated that our students are entering the workforce not really ready to do the jobs that they're being hired to do. And that has nothing to do with what we're teaching them. It has to do with the fact that there's a gap between the practice of what they're doing and the theory of what they're doing. And we do a fantastic job of teaching them the theory of how the world should work. And it doesn't always translate to the real world application of that same material. So I really see experiential learning as the ability to learn through doing, reflect, and then to come back to the classroom so we can all talk about what we learned in the real world. Because as we know, that gap is real and it's increasingly getting harder to navigate. So I look forward to kind of sharing with you the journey that I've been on, in my 20 years here at LSU and along with the panelists as well. So again, thank you so much for coming today, and we look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz. We also have a third panelist, Melinda Stallings. She hasn't joined us quite yet, so hopefully she will join us and then she'll be able to give her perspective as well. Thank you for all the introductions. It really is clear from what the two of you have said that experiential learning truly plays a vital role in allowing students to connect their academic work to real world impact. So thank you again for your introduction. So what we're going to do now is we are going to showcase and hear from our panelists and share some of the great things that they're doing. So for this next part, our panelists are going to highlight a specific experiential learning activity or project from their course that connects theory to practice. Each of our panelists will have about 10 minutes to share, and they may screen share as they showcase their course example so we can kind of see what's going on. They will also touch on the importance of the activity, any challenges they faced implementing it online, and how their students have responded to these activities or to this project based, in terms of engagement, confidence, or their skill development. So let's jump in, and we're going to go ahead and begin with Professor Yvette Merritt, who will share how she has integrated experiential learning into her community health science and policy courses and the impact it has had on her students. So please go ahead. We're excited about it.
Awesome. Can everybody see my screen? Fantastic. Y'all know this is par for the course. We have to make sure everybody can see and the technology is working. So diving right in, the course, our experiential learning course in the BSPH program, Bachelor of Science and Public Health program, is called Public Health in Action. This is our office. Our course director is Dr. Donna Williams. I am the course instructor, and then we have a coordinator, Asia Cofield, who helps us. Experiential learning for a lot of students can feel as chaotic as this slide. So I use it in all of our experiential and service learning courses to let them know that though we are asking them for very concrete things, though be it papers, reflections, forums, that it includes all of this other stuff. It's co-curricular. There's some research. There are talent and skills that are involved, and it's competency-based. And that's a real big thing in public health, particularly at the School of Public Health. We're undergoing review right now for our CEF accreditation. And so we are doing a really, really fine, detailed job of making sure all courses are communicated with the competencies and the deliverables in mind, and that students understand the connection. So the course description, defining service learning. We use the LSU Center for Community Engagement and Learning and Leadership definition. So it's a method of teaching and learning in which students fulfill the learning goals of their academic courses while serving the community, focusing on hands-on real-world concerns and experiences, and fostering that reciprocal learning and critical engagement approach. A little bit of a sort of cheat sheet for me in doing this work and how I came to be on this panel was that we redesigned this course in the spring semester of 24. At the same time, almost literally at the same time, I was accepted into Johns Hopkins University Service Learning Academy, their Source Service Learning Academy. And so it really helped me to be surrounded by other professionals in the field who are deeply rooted in this theoretical work, and then trying to make sure that there are great, authentic service learning opportunities for students, and really looking at some of the models that other schools are using, other professors across different disciplines, and how they are using service learning and experiential learning in those courses. So it's sort of an academy within an academy as we're redesigning this course. So our course description, and I'm sorry if I'm talking fast, I want to get everything done in the 10 minutes, but I'm sure I can slow down a little bit. It's a 3-credit-hour experiential learning course. Students explore the principles of public health learned in their first year of coursework. So they do 1 year of coursework with the bachelor's program, and then they are eligible to take this service learning course. They must do a community-based placement in tandem with their didactic coursework. They need to identify and address population health challenges. So we discourage students from doing like direct patient care, shadowing, clinical experiences so that they can focus more on population health experiences. They address the social determinants of health. There is a communication component, looking at oral and both written forms with a variety of media and communicating to diverse audiences. And then there's application, being able to locate and evaluate synthesized public health information. The student's role in all of this is pretty defined for them. They need to share all program requirements with their preceptor, and they are encouraged to work in their own home community. We have students across from all over the globe. We even had a student that was active duty military on a deployment. And so we really work with students to try to find a match. That particular student needed to do a remote service learning opportunity. So we really work with them to get things that are in their interest area and their different circumstances. They have to adhere to all deadlines as outlined in the course syllabus, maintain professionalism in the field, document their 40-hour requirements, and then complete all original work and maintain academic integrity. As the service learning practice experience instructors, we facilitate the didactic course content, assess student performance, review all deliverables, and connect students with the resources needed to facilitate their service placement. Preceptors at their service site, again, to model that professionalism, orient the students to the organization, their specific project, their requirements. They are to establish that work schedule so the students can accomplish their 40-hour requirement. Provide supervision. They assess the students' progress and performance. They integrate the students with regular staff or introduce the students to others who can assist with their career goals, with their project, anything that stems from that service opportunity. They review and sign off on all documents, and they evaluate student performance. So now to the good stuff. The way the course is designed, from the start, students have to understand that they are working directly with community-based organizations, and we tell them this, we give them an orientation to this. They must analyze population or are able to analyze population health needs, communicate health information, and advocate for change, advocate with the little a. The course supports the students' transition from just that academic theoretical learning to professional application and emphasizes public health practice in diverse real-world settings. This is particularly important for bachelor level students because many of them come into the program already thinking, well, I won't be able to stop here. I need to go on to the master's degree. That's not necessarily true. There are lots of ways in which they can practice public health with a bachelor's degree, and this opportunity gives them the chance to do so. Then students complete course readings, external readings, and lectures, as well as weekly reflections on their service work. The reflections must integrate the material from the coursework and the experience at their service site. So they are asked to do both, to say, taking the reading that you had in Module 4 and applying it to your service experience. Please reflect on the following, and you will see an example of that. Just an overview of our modules. And I highlighted in purple the ones we would talk about today, but of course, 7 modules, and these are the topics. We'll talk today about social determinants of health and power and privilege, modules 4 and 5. So in module 4, social determinants of health, students are reading about a framework for public health action by Dr. Frieden, who was former CDC director. They are given this population health impact pyramid that you see on the screen, and then they are asked to do the following. Using the public health impact pyramid as a framework, reflect on what social determinants of health most affect the population at your practicum agency. What events or interactions at your site gave you the insight into these determinants? What barriers to health are present, and how does your organization respond to them? Which tiers of the public health impact pyramid best describe the organization's approach to public health? And then what opportunities for your organization, what are the opportunities for your organization to deepen its impact? So I'm going to give you These are actual excerpts from student assignments, student papers, reflection papers here that I've highlighted, and I'll read one of them to you, but you can feel free to read them as they're on the screen. LATCI primarily serves low-income populations, the uninsured and underinsured rural communities and racial and ethnic minorities who are disproportionately affected by tobacco use and often face systemic barriers to succession resources. These populations also tend to experience multiple overlapping public health challenges, such as high rates of chronic disease, limited access to quality healthcare, and exposure to environmental hazards. This shows me that the student has an awareness of what the organization is designed to do, how the organization impacts or interacts with the social determinants of health, and then the other overlapping social determinants of health experienced by the population utilizing the services. So if a student were not in that placement, they would not have the awareness of, they could go on the website, they could look at the mission statement, they could include that kind of stuff if they were only in the office, but they wouldn't be able to speak to those other outlying social determinants of health that are impacting the population that the service organization is working to address. One of honestly the most transformative in my career experiences is with the reflection paper for Module 5, where students are to discuss power and privilege and their understanding of power and privilege and those social dynamics and critically reflect on them. And the assignment is as follows. After completing Module 5 lecture and required reading, Oppression and Power by Palmer et al., write a 2-page reflection paper. Your reflection should address the following. They should define power and privilege in their own words, reflect on their personal identities, their privileges, their non-privileged identities, how they view themselves in the world, explore the role of privilege. How does privilege influence you and how you move through the world? So students are required to examine themselves first. Then they talk about what they learned through this reflection, how they can apply this critical thinking to their practice sites. How have they observed power and privilege or oppression in the population that the agency serves? What impact does that have on public health efforts? And then they use examples. I'm going to spend a little bit more time getting into these reflections because they have just been such a powerful learning tool for me as an instructor, but also I think the students have demonstrated ways in which they were able to gain so much here. One student said, although I recognize that I've had a lot of privilege in healthcare, like good insurance, access to care, and support from my family, I also know that there are parts of my identity that make me more vulnerable. And the student went on to talk about where they experience vulnerabilities. At the bottom, I'm going to read here. This reflection made me think deeper about the weight of my story and how my experiences can be both a burden and a source of strength. I never really sat down and asked myself where I hold privilege because I've always been so focused on what I had to fight through. But now I see that even in the struggle, I've earned a position where I can use my privilege to advocate for others, especially other young women, single moms, and soldiers navigating similar paths. I've learned that power doesn't just come from a rank or title. It comes from knowing who you are and what you've been through, and how you choose to use your voice. Super impactful. And the last one, understanding privilege helps me approach public health with more empathy and awareness. It reminds me that health is more than biology. It's about who has access, who gets heard, and who gets ignored. It's also made me realize that being aware of my own privilege isn't about guilt, it's about responsibility. If I have the power to speak up, help, or make things more fair, I should use it. Y'all cannot even imagine how gratifying it is to hear students reflect like this in this world, right? They are getting so much. They're used to machine learning. They're used to online. They're used to doing the work, like this student said, more than biology. They can do the coursework, but making those connections has been such a transformative experience to witness and to be a part of. And so these, I hope, examples show the ways in which our students are stepping into the moment using experiential learning. They're meeting us in the moment. They're doing things and making connections that are just so useful and cannot be duplicated by other experiences. You can't chat GPT this one. You have to be in the work, in the field, in the sauce with the people and with the population to get this kind of rich information. And these are just three examples of very many that I've been privileged to see in this time. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, but our service learning course resources and contacts are available on our website here, and we have an email address, and I'm located in the School of Public Health in New Orleans, so feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thanks.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor Merritt. That was fantastic. Now we're going to switch it over to Dr. Schwarz to give us a little insight into what he's doing. He's been leading innovative work in connecting entrepreneurship and information systems with students to ensure that they're getting that real world business experience. So, Dr. Schwarz, would you please go ahead and share what you're doing with your students?
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate that. I don't know if I can follow that. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor Merritt. I loved it's just so inspiring to see what everyone's doing. My teaching largely revolves around how and why individuals and organizations use technology. So, a lot of my coursework is very IT based as a center. So I have to start with that premise that as I think about experiential learning, I think about it in a kind of different way, which is how do we leverage the power of tech to create experiential education? Or to create it in a different kind of way. Now, that's not to say that, in-person kind of experiences are different, and I certainly do that. So, for example, I right now have a class in entrepreneurship, as Kristen just mentioned, and my students are off this week because they're actually driving around golf courses in Baton Rouge to try to find managers of golf courses. Because they have to figure out how to take a product idea and implement it in a golf course. So, very experiential in that kind of perspective. And that's really, as we think about like getting into the field, that's certainly one area that I think is really interesting, is really thinking about the classroom differently and really not bounding our education by the classroom. Now, I've been here for 20 years. I came up with in the kind of traditional teaching approach, right? You go in, you lecture, you assign your quizzes and your exams and your assignments, and that's it. But what I realized over time is that students didn't see why they needed to learn the material. And they also didn't see the applicability of the material. Now you think, well, you're in business. That's got to be easy to show them that, right? But that wasn't always true. So about 10 years ago, I decided to start the process of gamification, right? So we play games in class to teach concepts. So for example, I had students build paper airplanes to talk about supply chains and what happens when products don't show up on time. And yet orders are coming in, but they couldn't make their paper airplanes on time, right? I did Legos. So, for example, I did a simulation with Legos where I put Legos in front of a classroom and I told them they had 20 minutes to build something. Now, the pedagogy was that they were supposed to begin to ask what they were supposed to be building. But of course, students didn't do that. They just began building. Well, after 5 minutes, I tell them, by the way, you can't use any more green bricks. The vendor's now out of green bricks. So, resource constraints. After 10 minutes, I made them actually switch groups. So they had to get into different groups as everybody else. That has to do with allocating labor differently. Then they had to deal with the fact that all of a sudden I called time, even though the time wasn't up, because in the real business world, that these things happen. So I did that for a long time with gamification, with Legos and paper airplanes, but it really still wasn't connecting. There was still a disconnect in terms of the ability of the students to apply the material in a meaningful way and the experiences that I was trying to have them achieve. So it dawned on me one day. I have four kids. They're now 16 through 20. My second oldest is actually a freshman there at LSU in computer science. But he came down one day and he said, "Dad, I think I want to learn computer programming." And I said, "Oh, that's great, Luke. Why?" He said, "Because I've been playing Minecraft. I want to do that." And it dawned on me that video games are another source of gamification. So how can we take the principles of video games and apply them to business? So the very first product that we came up with and the experience that we came up with was to teach analytics. Now, analytics to us is a struggle. Students say, well, why do I need to know analytics? So we designed a game to teach them why they need to know analytics. So I'm going to just show you a real short overview of this. So the idea was students were actually running a virtual pizza restaurant. For the first 7 days that they run this restaurant, they have no analytics at all. And after that, they get to use analytics. So what they do is they find out that they're taking over a pizza restaurant that's really not doing very well. And so they have to take over this downtown location and turn it around. So as they start this video game, they come in and they get introduced to the overall what the pizza restaurant looks like, and they find out how much trouble they're in. The first thing, of course, they have to do is hire employees, chefs and servers and wait staff. They have nothing to guide them by, so they're going by their gut instinct. So they begin to then the process of playing the game of actually running the restaurant. So as patrons come in, what you'll see is that if they're green, they're happy. If they're yellow, no, so, and red, they're completely unhappy. But the students have to figure out why. So of course, one element of this is cost. So of course, students can set the cost. They have to make sure that their products show up on time. Now, this is very, very sped up. Keep in mind, this is just to give you an overview. But the idea here is they're actually running this virtual restaurant. And what we found through this process is that students transformed their view of analytics. All of a sudden, it made sense to them. I get it. You can't run a restaurant without understanding data. And all of a sudden, data became more important. So they play 7 days without the insight. Then they can download all their data. They can actually ingest it into Excel and be able to run analysis. So here you see an example of them making sure their pricing is on point, make sure their inventory is there. And of course, we have to have social media. So you see here reviews as they go out, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. What I found is that students are increasingly interested in why analytics is important now. And I run this in two different ways. In my more technical classes, we get very, very into how do we understand the analytics behind it? What is driving the decision? On the soft side, I focus more on what was the benefit that was gained from it. So I can either run this in Excel with very, very hardcore statistics, or in a more soft approach, which is what are you learning about the process of data and information management? So I really saw some really cool outcomes from this. And this actually is not only being used here at LSU, but actually in Indiana University, every single student in interest to business statistics uses the same game. And they actually moved from actual coffee shop data to this. Now, the benefit of this is that every time a student makes a decision, it's their decision. So they have to defend that decision. So this was our first step. And while that was very, very helpful, we decided to take on another area. We said, all right, the second area that we struggle with students is to think about concepts of IT, right? So I'm in IT myself. So give me a moment here. I'm going to open up this next one. And we said, well, how can we take this concept and move it into the realm of IT? So we took our pizza restaurant here, and we said, all right, how can we reuse the pizza restaurant in a different kind of simulation or a different kind of approach? So we created an approach where students are applying for a virtual internship, and in that internship, they have to prove that they can get the job. So here's our example of our internship approach. So here we are at the same vertical slice, and we're on a little moped here, and students enter and they go by the actual location that you just saw, and they find out that they're actually going to corporate headquarters. So there's our old location downtown, and here we are at headquarters. They walk in the front door and they find out that they're here to interview for a job.
It's a big job, but one that you were eager.
Sorry, excuse that. So in the process, what they actually discover that the company is under a cyber attack. It's being attacked, and they have to figure out why. Now, what they're doing along the way is they're showing us that they understand servers and networking and all these different elements. But ultimately, they have to figure out why that company got hacked. And what they discovered is they outsourced all their IT, and actually the vendors across the street downloading it from the coffee shop. So again, what we found is that students understood why they need to learn this material. So it really showed them applicability as well. So we saw a lot of engagement from students, and I use this from undergraduates up to master's levels as well. And again, we can achieve different learning objectives depending on how we play this game. So here's an example of what we're teaching of these concepts as well. So this was our second attempt. We then said, all right, well, let's look at a different approach as well. And one of the areas that we discovered of problems was that students could conceive of an idea, conceive of how to do their job, but they couldn't actually do it. So let me give you a perfect example. We went out to the film industry. We went out to Celtic Studios. We talked to the group there, and they said, we're having a hard time. Students are coming in to help us run these films, but they don't understand what the basic elements of what film production is and how it works. So we created this orientation to Celtic Studios. So what happens is that I'm going to see if I can move this to full screen so you can see a little better. There we go. So what happens is students, this is the actual Celtic Studios that we actually captured in VR, and you see all of those different tools there are different elements that go into producing a film. So the students have to walk around this sound stage, and then they have to show us that they understand things like a baby light or a key light. They take quizzes. Well, what this shows them is that when they first enter, they know what the terminology is and they know how these things work. So basically, they kind of walk around our studio here and encounter these different elements, and they prove to us that they understand how these processes work. The result is what we've seen is an increase in awareness, an increase in engagement, and an increase in the ability for students to apply their concepts on day one. Now, the latest one that we're working on right now has to do specifically with something that's important to us here in Louisiana, which is data centers. So I teach network management. One of the things that the students struggle with was understanding what a data center is. So we captured a data center, which is seen here, and you see a bunch of servers. So what the students do, this is a video representation, but the students walk around to the server racks, they interact with the server racks, they understand heating and cooling and electricity and fire prevention, and they can even pull a server out to understand what a server looks like. What we've seen is that students who engage in this simulation have a higher rate of passing the Network Plus certification because they know what a data center is. We're even talking with high school students right now and then using the same simulation for high school students because as we know, the metadata center is coming and they need 500 qualified applicants to run the data center. So we're going to use this as a way to teach data center management for our state as well. All right. So as I kind of draw this to a close here, what did I learn? I learned that first of all, that engaging students with experiential learning and thinking differently really does result in increased levels of engagement and increased learning as well. Students are excited. They like to try new things that are a little bit different. And the second thing I learned is just the challenge of thinking about grading. One of the big areas is how do you grade awareness? So I can grade whether or not they learn the material. But as we think about engagement, I think this requires us to think about assessment differently than we do now. And that's a good thing. I think we need to get away from thinking about multiple choice questions and exams and essays. And while all those have a place, at a broader perspective, I think this experiential education allows us to step back and say, what are we here for? What's the outcome that we're really trying to achieve? And if day one preparation is what we're trying to achieve, then we need to rethink how we're teaching as well. So again, thanks so much for coming today, and I'll pass it back to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz. Oh, that was wonderful. I have so many questions myself to ask you. Um, Well, our next panelist is Melinda Stallings. I'm going to let her introduce herself to you guys before she starts talking about her role with LSU Online and continuing education. And she brings to us leadership and professional development perspective on experiential learning. So, Melinda, the floor is yours. So if you would like to share, unmute, and we can get started.
Preston, I appreciate it. So it's great to be here with you all. I'm sorry I was running a little late. We know how those meetings go that are supposed to end on time, but they don't. I am delighted to be with you all today. I'm an LSU alum, but I've been with LSU Online and Continuing Education for about 25 years now. I started in the face-to-face realm, delivering seminars. My first seminar that I was asked to present was positive conflict resolution. And so that's become a mainstay for me, and it led me into a lot of other things. Currently, in 2019, we developed the micro certification for leadership and professional development. My courses revolve around leadership development, and I was listening with great interest to Dr. Schwartz and his awareness piece, because that's one of the things that we really promote within this leadership micro cert is how aware are you as a leader of what it is that you're learning. So in 2019, when we developed this, as you can see, the world has changed radically since COVID, and in just this past summer, I think, we finished up the revisions on our course. And what we did was we really made sure that there was that experiential learning component. Kristen was my instructional designer, and it was just a phenomenal partnership, a great collaboration. And the key to that, I think, I'm just going to jump in here with some of the challenges since Dr. Schwartz ended on that. Some of the challenges that we encountered when we were revising the course. One is, how are we going to make this engaging for, and my courses deal mainly with adult learners in terms of corporations that send their employees through for management leadership certificates. So how are we going to engage those adult learners who maybe don't have all of the background in many of the modalities that Dr. Schwartz was talking with us about, and we still want to keep them engaged. So we ended up making sure that there were certain things that they could use, multiple formats to keep them engaged, matching the concept to the answer, multiple choice questions, have kind of an escape room concept, kind of like what he showed. But the key here that I want you to keep in mind so it doesn't become a challenge is just to remember what the success outcome is for the course that you're developing. And that's easy to say that you'll do that. Okay, this is what I want them to learn. But when we start getting into breaking down the instructional design the instructional design part, the information gathering, having the outline so that in the instance of my courses, there's 3 courses and each of them have 3 modules. And so the challenge was, how do I make sure that they are assimilating information from the previous modules, that they're building on that information so that when they get to the end of the entirety of the certificate, they've been able to really move through what it's like, even if they've had no experience as a manager or a leader, or if they've been that individual who is tasked with maybe helping develop people through a pipeline, or they want to move up within the organization. Are we giving them the skills that they need? And that's where having a really great collaborative um, relationship with your instructional designer will pay off, because while you're going to be bringing the institutional knowledge and the knowledge of your subject, your instructional designer will have the ideas about, okay, well, we could use this platform or we could use that platform, which brings to another challenge, and that can be the tech aspect. What is the appetite for those who are within your courses? How much background do they have? Do they have extensive background, much like they would need to have for Dr. Schwartz courses? Or are they people who haven't been back to school? Sometimes I have people that tell me I haven't ever taken an online course. I haven't been back to school in 10 years. And so we have to keep in mind all of the different types of individuals who are going to be accessing our courses, and how user friendly are they? What's the user experience that they're going to have? For me, I think that experiential is so important for those very reasons. Many times they're being put into situations that they've never been a manager or a leader before. And so they're gaining the information that they need, but where do they go to try it on? I don't know how many of you all have ever been promoted, but most of the time we get promoted because we do a great job at what we do, but it doesn't mean that we know how to manage or lead people. And so it's key that we're developing their skills in that arena, as well as giving them the confidence to share the information that they have. And in the classroom style, when I first started with LSU, that's easy to do because you can, throughout the 3-hour session or the day-long session, you have the opportunity to say, okay, we're going to cover this concept, and you cover it in depth, and then they get an opportunity to role play, or they get an opportunity to go up to the flip charts and have a discussion among themselves. Or we ask them, okay, take a moment and describe what that meant to you, how that's going to apply to you, and then we can have open concept discussion. But when we're in this asynchronous learning platform, that's kind of challenging to do. So making sure that as we're covering the materials and we've already determined what their success outcome is, how are we making sure that they're engaging in things that are going to be applicable to the skill level that they're at as well? And so, as I mentioned, we use a lot of different modalities um, because it's important that they get an opportunity to practice. And some people will have the ability to practice in one scenario much easier than in another. This is their safe space. So, for instance, I teach how to have courageous conversations. Well, I'm giving them a whole list of phrases that they can use, ways of framing the information, and they have to have a way that they can try that on prior to actually going out into their work environment and practicing it. So safe space is a key component for experiential exercise in terms of what we do, what we produce for the clients that we serve, many of which are, some Fortune 3 companies. So it's important that we're serving their needs really well. The other thing is, how do we measure what it is that we're helping them to attain? And so we do a couple of things. There's a pre and a post knowledge assessment, and that's really telling for us how well that they're getting information. There's some feedback forms at the end of each of the course modules. And then additionally, I have a greatest takeaways that gives information about what really resonated with them, what became really important for them, and what they're going to actively apply. And we'll share a couple of those testimonials with you after I go through the course here. And so, what I'd like to do now is just share with you one of the. Let's see, I've got to do the sound share. One of the other things that we do is we make sure that we're addressing all of the learning modalities, kinesthetic, the writing, the visual, and then the auditory, because we have different learners. Kristen, can you see that? Is it there?
Yes, I can see it good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So we're going to go through a courageous conversation. And what has happened is throughout this module, what you're going to see is that in the beginning, there will be some, I guess, they will have known these personality types because they have assimilated this information through previous modules and courses. So again, this is the third course. So this is where they're bringing everything together. And it's talking about, as you can see, some of the conversational intelligence, I, you, and we centric conversation. We're going to start with personal conflict within the workplace. And I'm not going to go through all of them because they can be a little bit lengthy. But as you'll see, there'll be an auditory, so they'll listen. And I want to invite you to just listen to this description of what is happening to see where you think you might be able to guide this. And I know you have absolutely no concept of what we talked about in the earlier modules, but it's also a good point for you to think, okay, do I have any training on this? Or maybe do I need to get some training? Because that can be eye-opening for us as well, and also a source of feedback for us. So we're going to start with personal conflict. And this is the scenario. Just pay attention, please, to the conversation dynamics. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. We also have, for ADA purposes and for people who like to read, that they can download the transcript. So here we go.
Melinda, I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let's see. Share computer sound. All right.
Work they receive from them
How about that?
and the work environment overall. Zoe is a take charge person.
Would you like for me to restart? I'm not sure how to restart, to be honest with you. So the key here is that it's Zoe and Zach, and they're having some personal conflicts, and then this will get you right up to where they are.
And often performs as an informal lead on projects. While she is liked and respected, people know when to get out of the way. Zach takes a more deliberate and focused approach in his work. He works with others and gains input, but still likes to make decisions based on his data and the overall scope of a project. Yesterday, the office was stunned by a full-on argument that left people in disbelief. You, as the manager, were away at a meeting at the time and walked in to catch the tail end of it.
Team, I can see that this has really been a challenge for you. I'd like to invite you all to just take a break and get out of the office. Grab some fresh air, grab a coffee or a snack and just breathe. The one thing I will ask is that you do not group up and talk about what just happened amongst yourselves or go to another person. This involves only this team. I promise that I am going to speak.
So the manager continues to go through and says that he's going to address it, and he does. He calls Zoe and Zach into the office. And then what our students are asked to do then are to come through and see how they're going to handle that situation, which tests their knowledge in terms of how capable they will be to apply this within the workplace. So as you can see here is the first set of questions. Why does the manager first send the rest of the team on a short break? And so there's the 4 answers, and some of them are a little, we give a 1 or 2 that might be okay, we know it's not that. But you'd be surprised at the amount of times that people will click something that would seem otherwise like it would be not an appropriate answer. But for this purpose, it is, of course, to ensure privacy while addressing the conflict directly with Zoe and Zach. And so as we continue through, what's the best reason for the manager to begin asking, help me to understand? And then they come through and really discern what's going to be the best. And of course, here, it is going to be that we want to gather insight into the root cause before making judgments. So it will continue through with either green or red. And then just this last one here, the most important lesson that can be applied to handling workplace conflicts. And again, if I click on this, it would be red. It would show you that you missed one. And then it gives you a total. So this will give you a total that you've had one that you've missed. And then at the end of it, it will give you the total that you had correct and the total that you had correct. With that being said, let's see, let's just get this one. So it'll get to the end of it for us. I'm sorry, my screen, I'm on top of these. What was the benefit of the manager's response to conflict? And of course, it is that the leadership takes workplace behavior seriously. So it gives them how many they missed. They have an option that they can go back and retry it if they want to get a perfect score. In our instances, they have to have a 70% or better. Or did we change that, Kristen? Regardless, most of the time we get 4 out of 4s, and that just shows us that they have been really comprehending as they are moving along. So I think that for me, I want to wrap it up here because I know that we need time for Q&A. And that is that as an instructor, one of the things that's most important to me is that they are indeed able to go out and put this information into practice. And I'll just read you a couple of testimonials that we have here. And the first one is, I had quite a revelation by taking this course because it allowed me to seek to understand each one of my 23 agents more. Our team is very culturally and geographically diverse, which allows me to handle multiple personalities at the same time. Having a better understanding on the different personality types will allow me to know my agents better so I can motivate and develop them. And the second one was becoming a real leader. The course helped me to take a step back and really consider many aspects of life and myself, which is something I really appreciated. The training also gave me insight into the qualities of a real leader, including how to set a good example for others and make an effort to comprehend your subordinates. I want to put some of the knowledge I've gained into practice, particularly with regard to teamwork and personality analysis, even though I still have a long way to go in terms of completing my developmental plan. My sense of self-assurance has increased as a result of this course. This entire course has been really enjoyable. And as an instructor, I know that you all will be interested in getting those types of comments that remind us why we have this real passion that we do for our work. So thank you for allowing me this brief time with you. And if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them in Q&A.
Thank you so much, Melinda. Appreciate you
Sure.
taking the time to share that with us. As you saw, there's been lots of examples, amazing examples, things that are on the easier side, things that are on the more complex side. So you kind of get an introduction to where you can start small and continue moving forward to do bigger things. So we've seen some examples across different disciplines and, regardless of level, the goal was to achieve helping students to really deeply connect with learning and to walk away with things that they can implement and do when they get out in the workplace. So before we move to our audience questions, I'd love to hear your advice, panelists, for other faculty, subject matter experts, or just interested people here in the call today. Who are looking to revitalize your course with experiential learning. So if you could give me just a really quick, 20-second, elevator pitch of what's one piece of advice or one practical first step you would recommend? And whoever would like to jump in and say that. Not everybody has to.
I'll say so. I'll jump in. One, make sure that they link to the learning objectives of the course, and two,
Mhm.
start small. What I just showed you is 10 years of work. So this is not something that happened overnight. And there's also little things. I know Melinda just said role playing. It's a fantastic place to start. So, for example, the class I just taught, I didn't lecture at all in class. Every single class session was the students read a case study and they did role playing the entire class. And after 7 weeks of the class, I have to say that it was the best class in terms of what I saw qualitatively in terms of their learning. So start small and link it to learning objectives. That'd be my first piece of advice.
Yeah. I'll just say what he said. Also, I really find it important. I really enjoy engaging with my students as we go along. When they submit their introduction, we welcome them, we make them feel really a part of, we let them know that we're there for them if they need anything. As well, I like to comment on whatever their submissions are. That really makes them feel like they're being personally attended to, and they are, because we're taking that time to do that, and really celebrating them and the work that they've done and pointing out what they've done really well on their capstones, while of course always offering suggestions, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing our job right. But they're here to learn and grow, and especially in um, the professional field. I think it's a little bit of a different construct than people who are young people who are currently in college. But know your objectives, what's your success outcome, and time with it. It's a great adventure doing this. So just embrace it and have a good time with it.
I would add to that. I echo both sentiments, but I would also add to the conversation, engage a thought partner. So for me, it was definitely my designer with LSU Online, as well as the Johns Hopkins Service Learning Academy, some other faculty around. There are so many resources to start small, to take that first step to finding one activity where students can engage in this way. So I would definitely say find a thought partner that you can kind of bounce ideas off of. And if it's role play or if it is community engagement in the sense like what we're doing with the service projects, or as big as that or as small as, just an in-class activity, engage a thought partner. And even if you don't have one naturally by way of like LSU Online or any other like groups that you're a part of, think about using your student evaluations, your course evaluations as that thought partner, because students are always willing to say what didn't work for them, and maybe to make it click would be to have that experiential learning component.
Beautiful.
Perfect. So now we are at the end of our conversation. So we want to open it up to everyone that's in the room today. Any questions that you may have? I'm sure there are lots. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. You can hit the raise your hand icon, or if you want to physically raise your hand, I'll be looking at everybody. But we also have the Q&A section. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom, you should have a Q&A icon. If not, you can click on the more and post in there. So I will be looking for raised hands. Hala is going to be taking a look at the Q&A
Yeah,
panel.
Kristen, we did have a
Sure.
question come in. Dr. Schwartz,
Love
I
it.
noticed that you answered it, but for the purpose of the recording, I'd like to repeat the question. So somebody asked what platforms you use to create those activities that you showcase. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So everything is actually based on Unity programming, and we partner with a local small business to help us with the development. We were very blessed. We received some grant money to help us in the development of these of our platform as well. But yeah, I also echo, what my colleagues are saying here too. Yeah, partnerships are really important, and that thought leader is important. And what was really cool is actually that the company we engaged is a video game company. So they actually taught us some elements of gamification as well. So, for example, a real small thing, in the cyber one I showed you, what you didn't see is that the student actually carries around an iPad. And the reason why we did that is because the gaming company said that in games like Zelda and other kind of games that are very popular, they tend to have a pack with them, and that pack has a journal to keep track of information. So let's be digital and make an iPad. So these kind of partnerships really give you some insight, and it's a real small nuance, but it was very meaningful as an impact.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Professor Stallings, you used H5P for that activity that you shared with us earlier. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And one of the things that I would recommend, there's lots of open source out there, especially when you're starting small. And with the budgets the way that they are, it's a great idea to go for the open source and reach out to the instructional designers at LSU as well, because they can help you find the platform that's going to best suit your needs for your concept. When I talked about having your outline and you know best your course material and what you want your students to get from it, they can suggest. Kristen was amazing helping to suggest, okay, we're gonna use this platform for this and a different platform for another. And the main thing is that they get the benefit of the applied learning and have the ability to feel like they're actively participating. Even if it is something as simple as listening, moving through and answering questions, all the way to that beautiful video enhancement that Dr. Schwartz uses.
Perfect. Do we have any other questions? Anything else in the Q&A, Hala, or have we answered everything?
And I'll just add to just don't be afraid to experiment. I think that, I think we all get so worried and so scared that what happens if it goes bad? Been there, done that. I've had simulations that went off the rail, and it happens. And you know what? You stop and go, you know what? That didn't go as planned, and that's okay. And then you have that conversation with the students that look what happens when things don't go like they're supposed to. So I would encourage you, don't be your worst enemy and don't beat yourself up. And on the role playing one, if you're looking for a real low, easy way, use ChatGPT and contextualize it. But that's a great place to start. So when I came with my role plays, the first thing I did is I uploaded I put my Harvard case there. I put my learning objectives there, and I said design a role playing simulation that aligns with my learning objectives and that contextualized to this case. Was it perfect? No, but it got me thinking. It got me started. And then I created my rubric, and then I worked through it. So the first time it wasn't perfect. Next semester will be better, and it'll grow and grow and grow. So don't be your own worst, enemy in this process. Experiment, be innovative, and have fun. This is fun. And like Melinda said, and like Dr. Merritt said, we love our students. So use this actually as a way to get closer to what we all started this process for, was to teach and engage. So in a lot of ways, the benefit to me is all of those issues that get boring, frankly, as a faculty, the teaching element, the repetitiveness of the PowerPoints, all those get solved when you're actually with your students, because then it reminds you of why you started this job.
100%.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you said that. You never should be scared to, fail. What do they say? Fail forward. We always learn something. So just, try it out and see what happens. And it's, reflecting and making things even better next time. So as we wrap up, I want to extend a huge thank you to our panelists, Professor Yvette Merritt, Dr. Andrew Schwarz, and Melinda Stallings for sharing your experiences and insights today. And thank you to everyone who joined us today and to the LSU Online Faculty Committee for organizing this wonderful event. We would appreciate if you could take a couple of minutes and provide your feedback on today's session. Hala has pulled up the QR code, so if you have your mobile device handy and want to scan that, you can, and give us a little bit feedback on today's session and things you'd like to see in the future. Once the recording is finalized, we'll be posting it on the LSU Online Faculty Committee webpage so that you can watch it again, share it with your friends, your family, whomever you'd like to. Our hope for you today is that the conversations that we had inspire you to explore new ways to bring hands-on applied learning into your online courses. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to seeing you at our next event. So thank you so much for your time today.